Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Meg. Today we are going over the War Within Season 1 Mistweaver Guide for Mythic Plus, and we will be talking about stats, talents, hero talents, core abilities, cooldowns, rotation and triage, and then at the end some recommended UI elements. Starting out, I would like to do a quick introduction for what you're getting into when you decide to play Mistweaver. First and foremost, we are a melee healer. All of our damage and utility is reliant on being in melee, and a majority of our healing comes from damage to healing conversion spells, and that plays a key role in our efficiency when it comes to casted spells as well. We are highly mobile and have a versatile kit from Mythic Plus that makes us quite valuable. We're moderately tanky for a healer, and we have a flexible healing profile that allows us to cover a variety of damage patterns. Mistweaver is a higher APM healer, so it is considered to be one of the more challenging ones, coupled with the fact that we are melee. I would consider Mistweaver to have a low floor but a high ceiling when it comes to performance and execution. And I know that fun is subjective, but Mistweaver remains one of the most fun healers in my opinion. I like that there are multiple solutions to problems, and I appreciate that I bring more than just healing, as we also provide decent damage and good utility for the group. Stat-wise, we are looking at intellect being above all as it usually is, and then a different balance of haste, crit, mastery, and burst. All stats for Mistweaver are good, but as I said, main stat is always a priority, and haste follows closely after. Haste is our best secondary stat due to our hot tick rate increase, faster casts, lower GCD, a faster DPS rotation which gives us more value during our celestial rotation. Critical Strike contributes to our healing and our damage quite a bit as well, and it also contributes to our Mana Tea stack generation. Mastery and Crit will change in priority if you're focusing more on damage or more on healing, but Mastery is going to give you more bang for your buck when it comes to healing throughput. It's not a stat that you want to stack to the extremes, but it's also not something that we want to avoid entirely, so you'll find your own level of comfort for your Mastery rating as you play. And lastly, versatility contributes to damage and healing to a much smaller degree than Critical Strike, but also provides survivability. This isn't something that we focus on until high keys when it comes to survivability. Our class tree has a lot of utility in it, so it will vary from dungeon to dungeon, as well as comfort level for each player. Generally, this is what I will be running, but there is a lot of talents that I may shuffle around. For example, if there is a dungeon with no enrages, then I will drop pressure points because that's only a soothe, or if there's a higher healing requirement for single target debuffs, I might pick up Soothing Mist and drop Jade Walk. So there's a lot that you can do depending on the dungeon you're doing, or how comfortable you are with the healing checks or the damage checks, and that is all going just to come with time and find what you prefer. The spec tree also doesn't change a whole lot. We have about 1 or 2 free points, and that comes down to preference. This is the standard Chi-Ji, Gift of the Celestials, and Jade Fire Stomp build that we have been playing for a while, and it's very versatile when it comes to adjusting to situations for both our damage and our healing. This is not to say that you couldn't change a few things around, but the hard hitters are Chi-Ji and the Jade Fire Stomp nodes, as well as Ancient Teachings. I really wouldn't recommend builds that don't use those talents for Mythic Plus. Most of our healing with this build is going to come from Ancient Teachings, Awakened Jade Fire, as well as our Gust of Mist, which is our Mastery, and Shaylan's Gift. You're also going to be seeing Chi Cocoons and anything else relating to Chi-Ji, as that is our main cooldown. There's not a lot to talk about in the way of hero talents. Most of the time we're going to be running Conduit of the Celestials. Master of Harmony is an option if you absolutely do not want to add another button to your bars, but Master of Harmony does not come close to competing with Celestial Conduit. The first choice node is Temple Training versus Swen's Guidance. Temple Training is a heal increase for Vivify and Enveloping Mist, so if you need some additional throughput, you can take that. And the alternate for Swen's Guidance is just a % chance to refund your Teachings of the Monastery stacks, and a damage on your Tiger Palm increase. So if you are super comfortable with the heal checks, you can take Swen's Guidance, but typically I think we'll see most people running Temple Training. Restore Balance versus Yulon's Knowledge is an easy choice since we're not actually taking Refreshing Jade Wind. We will get an extra with Restore Balance, so that is our default choice there. With Jade Sanctuary and Nazao's Protection, it honestly depends. Jade Sanctuary will be the default, but if you absolutely need the survivability during Fortifying Brew for some specific encounter or mechanic, then you can take Nazao's Protection. Otherwise, Jade Sanctuary is a good bet. And finally, we have August Dynasty versus Inner Compass, and honestly, Inner Compass not being a consistent or reliable stat just doesn't make it super valuable, and the amp from Jade Firestomp for Rising Sun Kick or for Vivify are much more valuable overall. For our core abilities, first up is Gust of Mist. This is our mastery. The higher mastery that you run, the more you're going to see the impact of this ability, and we apply it through Renewing Mist, Enveloping Mist, Vivify, Chi-Ji, Expel Harm, Revival, and the primary target of Shaylin's Gift. With Crane Style, we also now have Rising Sun Kick to cause a Gust of Mist, as well as a chance for Blackout Kick and Spinning Crane Kick. Chi-Ji also works with Mastery, however the Gust of Mist entry from the player and from Chi-Ji will show up as different abilities in details and logs, but they are both affected by the player's Mastery. So a lot of our major cooldowns do work with Mastery directly for increased throughput. Vivify is our main single target heal, but it will also heal allies with Renewing Mist on them when you are talented into Invigorating Mist, which we always are, and this is just for a smaller amount, but it does facilitate some sort of AoE healing in addition to that single target heal. This ability is also instant during Soothing Mist. Renewing Mist is a heal over time effect that will also cause targets healed by Vivify to be healed for the Renewing Mist targets. This ability will also apply Chi Harmony. Chi Harmony is a part of Renewing Mist and prevents Renewing Mist from jumping for the first 8 seconds, but also increases the healing that they receive by 50% of those same 8 seconds. This is very important for our triage. Enveloping Mist is another single target heal that has a couple of uses. It does have a heal amp, but it also is used to trigger Enveloping Breath during Chi-Ji, and it's only really used during heavy single target damage or for heavy short-lived group-wide damage outside of Chi-Ji. With Conduit of the Celestial's hero talents, you will also be using your Strength of the Black Ox procs with this ability. Shaylin's Gift is our main AoE heal for big bursty damage. This is an ability that can be considered a cooldown, but it is so short that it's kind of hard to call it that. But it is a very powerful group-wide heal that should be used for heavy damage, but it can also be used for single target healing if needed, and it doesn't always need to be used at full stacks. Typically, around 5 stacks or more is enough to warrant using the ability. Ancient Teachings is mostly maintenance healing, but it does represent well on overall. This is activated by Jade Firestomp, and our uptime on it should be very high in keys. However, don't rely on this ability to heal heavy damage event, as it is more designed to be supportive maintenance healing. Jade Firestomp triggers Ancient Teachings. It also deals damage when it hits enemies, and if you hit allies on an application, it will proc a Gust of Mist on them. After the initial hit, only your character needs to be in it to benefit from the effects. With the talents Ancient Concordance and Awakened Jade Firestomp allows us to cleave with our Blackout Kick. Tiger Palm will strike twice per use, and we gain healing through Spinning Crane Kick. This is a buff that accompanies Jade Firestomp, which allows the healing through Spinning Crane Kick, as well as allowing us to hit twice with Tiger Palm. The effects from both of these will linger for 8 seconds after you leave the Jade Firestomp, but you do still want to be in the stomp as much as you can so that you can try to get resets. This is the other buff that accompanies Jade Firestomp, and it allows our Blackout Kicks to cleave, which works with Ancient Teachings as well as Chi-Ji Gust of Mist. This effect will also linger for 8 seconds after you leave your Jade Firestomp, but again, you would still like to be in it as much as you can. Expel Harm is only a self-heal, but it should be your highest priority when it comes to healing yourself. It is instant and also deals a small amount of damage, but it's great for being on the move or a pseudo health pot. Renewing Mist has a chance to proc Zen Pulse. This stacks up to 2 times, and when we Vivify, our Zen Pulse will go off and heal all allies with Renewing Mist for an amount, which is increased by 6% per Renewing Mist active up to 30%. So this is just some additional AoE healing in addition to Invigorating Mists. And then we have Soothing Mist, which is not really used as a heal itself. It does do some healing, but it's pretty minimal. But this is a tool that makes Vivify and Enveloping Mist instant. Only use this when you need to cast more than one ability on the same player, or if you're talented into Period to Peace, when you're going to be casting a lot of Vivifies or a lot of Enveloping Mists. Moving on to our core damage abilities, Spinning Crane Kick is most likely going to be your highest damage overall in a key, and it also contributes to healing with Awakened Jade Fire. It is worth mentioning again, but Jade Firestomp also does damage the same way that it does healing. Damage is dealt on use of the ability and will hit enemies, but after the initial use, only your character needs to be in the effect. Rising Sun Kick is our main single target damaging ability, and you have a chance at resetting the cooldown to the rest of our DPS rotation with Teachings of the Monastery, so this should be used on cooldown as it also works with our maintenance and healing CDs. Specifically, Rising Mist is something that we use with Rising Sun Kick to extend HOTS and get more duration out of those spells. Tiger Palm is a basic single target hit, and it will hit twice with Awakened Jadefire. This will also give a stack of Teachings of the Monastery per hit target, so for 2 uses of Tiger Palm, we will get 4 stacks as it's hitting twice with Awakened Jadefire. Teachings of the Monastery is a passive ability that stacks up to 4 times and gives us more value in our chi windows as well as our Ancient Teachings and AoE damage. Blackout Kick cleaves with Awakened Jadefire and spends the Teachings of the Monastery stacks, so we use this at 4 stacks to get a chance at a reset on Rising Sun Kick as well as heal through Ancient Teachings. Generally we use this on cooldown for the best value on Rising Sun Kick, as well as the highest DPS depending on our target count. Mana Tea is our resource manager. Typically in Mythic Plus you're going to build up to 20 stacks and just drink it down all at once to gain mana, but you may find that certain bosses you'll want to focus on drinking Mana Tea before a lot of healing is required to benefit from the mana costs as well. Thunder Focus Tea is a bit of a busy ability. It is a spell that we will use in conjunction with another one of our core abilities, and they each provide a different benefit. Enveloping Mist is an instant cast, Renewing Mist lasts longer, Vivify is mana free, Rising Sun Kick is a shorter cooldown, and Expel Harm grants a Chi Cocoon, which is just a small self-shield. However, when you're using Secret Infusion, which is a talent often taken, you gain a stat depending on which ability you use with Thunder Focus Tea. Rising Sun Kick and Expel Harm give versatility, which is the most common use. Enveloping Mist is Critical Strike, Renewing Mist is Hazed, and Vivify gives Mastery. So with Secret Infusion, you decide either what empowered spell you want for its effect, or you decide which stat you need the most, which does often end up being versatility. But this button is very flexible, so I would definitely not macro anything together since that would prevent the flexibility. Paralysis is a soft CC that can act as a stop, or an ability to facilitate skips when used with Ring of Peace. When you take the talent Pressure Points, this turns Paralysis into a Soothe, but be aware that if you have Pressure Points talented, Paralysis cannot be used for skips because it will trigger combat when it attempts to soothe, and this combat has unlimited range, so it is one or the other. I am hoping that this is a bug or an oversight, but as it stands at the time of making this guide, you can only do one. Ring of Peace is a knock, but it does not trigger combat, so using this with Paralysis can facilitate skips, as well as working as a displacement ability to stop casts, prevent patrols, or even help to group mobs. Leg Sweep is just a simple AoE stun for a couple of seconds. Tiger's Lust is a single target movement speed ability that will remove slows, snares, or roots from the target as well. Fortifying Brew is one of our defensive that increases our health, which will impact any health scaling abilities that we have like Chi Cocoon or Life Cocoon, and is a 20% DR. Diffuse Magic is a magic only defensive that will also reflect a magic dot so that it can deal some damage, but this only works with certain abilities. I have been maintaining a Google Sheet that is a collection of all of the abilities in the current season dungeon pool that have an interaction with either Chi or Tiger's Lust, Anti-Root, and Anti-Slow, as well as the Diffuse interactions, so you can know if it will end up reflecting damage with your Diffuse. I made this in Shadowlands and I've been maintaining it each season, so this is going to be available linked in the description. Life Cocoon is our external that scales off of health, so you should have Ancient Teachings active before you use this ideally. This applies an absorb and a heal increase while the absorb is active, and the talent Chrysalis we will always run, and that reduces the cooldown so we get more frequent use. This is better suited as a personal or an external for a DPS player, since tank players are going to lose this so fast, but it can be used on a tank in a pinch, just be prepared to continue healing them afterwards. Revival is a master spell as well as a heal that also triggers a Gust of Mist. This is a group-wide and instant heal, so it can cover movement phases pretty well. Celestial Conduit is another spell that can be used while moving, and it is a channel. This is a radiating heal that will heal more per target hit, up to 5 targets, so you want to be in range with as many people and enemies as you can. It is a healing cooldown, but if you can get an extra use between needing it, then you can use it as a damage cooldown. Chi is our main cooldown, but there is a ton of things going on, there's a lot of moving parts, so we are going to break this down even further. There is player healing, which comes from our maintenance healing, active buffs, and setup for Chi. This includes our Jadefire Stomp to get our Ancient Concordance and Awakened Jadefire buffs, as well as Ancient Teachings. The Gust of Mist comes from the application of Jadefire and the application of Enveloping Mist and Renewing Mist that we put out before pressing Chi. This is all on the player side of things. So during the actual cooldown, the player healing that's happening is mostly Ancient Concordance and Awakened Jadefire, as well as Ancient Teachings, Gust of Mist, and Enveloping Mist. Renewing Mist is more of our setup portion, and it isn't going to be contributing a lot during the real cooldown. And then for the healing that's coming from Chi, we have Enveloping Breath and Chi Cocoons, which are both part of the Empowered Celestial talent. Enveloping Breath is procced from our player cast of Enveloping Mist while Chi is active, and Chi Cocoons are just a proc on use of Chi, and they're a one-time thing per cast of the cooldown. And the bigger part of this is that Chi will provide Gust of Mist healing when we, the player, use Blackout Kick. You will get more Gusts per stack of Teachings of the Monastery, and this also cleaves with Ancient Concordance, so you can get a lot of Gust of Mist with just a couple of buttons. Chi also has some additional effects like reducing the mana cost and the cast time of Enveloping Mist per stack of the Red Crane, up to 3 stacks, which gives a free and instant Enveloping Mist cast. Chi also provides an anti-root for the duration of the cooldown. For Chi to be an efficient healing spell, we do have a little bit of setup to do. You want to make sure that you have 4 stacks of Teachings of the Monastery, which is 2 Tire Palms if you have your buffs. You want to make sure that your Jadefire Stomp is down because this will give you Ancient Concordance, Awakened Jadefire, and Ancient Teachings buffs. If you're talented into Secret Infusion, you can use Thunder Focus Tea for haste or for verse, but if you are not talented into it, then you can skip this step. And lastly, you will want to use all of your Renewing Mist stacks for the Chi Harmony buff that it provides. Normally this is 2, but if you're talented into Pool of Mist, it'll be 3. And we can just use those either on ourselves or the DPS. Now we press Chi and our Chi Cocoons are going out. This is where you would be stalling your Blackout Kick cast if your Chi Cocoons are taking the first instance of damage and you're still healthy. If this is the case, you can use a Renewing Mist if you have regained any stacks, or a Thunder Focus Tea and Enveloping Mist cast to pre-hot for the Blackout Kick. Now that the Chi Cocoons have likely been popped, you can send your Blackout Kick if you didn't previously. This will consume your 4 stacks of Teachings of the Monastery and give you an instant cast Enveloping Mist. Use Enveloping Mist to proc your Enveloping Breath and follow up with a Rising Sun Kick to extend the Renewing Mist from setup and any Rapid Diffusion procs, as well as the Enveloping Mist that we just applied. Now we cast 2 Tiger Palms to get 4 new stacks of Teachings of the Monastery, and we repeat this rotation. This is a very basic rotation for Chi, but this cooldown is one of the most versatile cooldowns in the game, so you may find yourself in situations where you have lower mastery and lower target count, and you're relying more on Enveloping Mist and Enveloping Breath to heal rather than the bursty Gust of Mist. You may also omit your Enveloping Mist cast entirely if you're running high mastery, and have multiple targets where your Gust of Mist cleaves are enough, or you don't have the global to use Enveloping Mist. There could also be situations where you use Chi and just spinning Crane Kick since you have high target count and the damage isn't too bursty. And lastly, there may be times where you're simply using Chi just for the Chi Cocoons to avoid one-shots, and that is not unfamiliar at all. There are also disruptions to this rotation. For example, if you have Thunder Focus Tea available, you can Thunder Focus Tea and Enveloping Mist to get an extra Enveloping Mist out before you extend, or you may interrupt your rotation to use an Enveloping Mist with a Black Ox proc for the shields. But when in doubt, this rotation is going to fit most situations just fine. Typically when healing at Mother Plus, there isn't a rotation that's happening, but there is a triage system or a decision-making chart. Typically when I am considering using a cooldown or when I am trying to figure out what type of healing I need to do, I will go down this list and ask myself how many players are taking damage, what kind of damage are they taking, is it rot or is it burst, is it a heavy dot or is it a one-time thing. I also figure out if I need to specifically hold cooldowns for another mechanic, if we are coming up on a boss or a particularly difficult dungeon pull. I do want to make sure I have cooldowns set aside for that because that's what my group is expecting me to have. If I do have a cooldown that I don't need for another mechanic, I just take a look at what cooldowns I have available in the first place, and I'm also thinking about how many enemies I have access to cleave off of. All of these factor into how I am playing and the cooldowns I'm using or not using, as well as whether I am going to continue casting my casted abilities or if I am going to be doing more of my DPS rotation or spinning Crane Kick. All of these factor into how we heal and how we play as Mistweaver. So if there is not really much happening or the damage is super minimal, you can continue your DPS rotation because that is basically our maintenance healing. You can have your Renewing Mist active and any instant revivifies that happen, but you're not really stopping to cast any of your longer spells or Shaylons or any cooldowns. But this is what we are going to take a look at when it comes to healing different damage profiles. And these are all going to be operating under the assumption that this is damage that is heavier than your Ancient Teachings or HOTS can handle. Our single target rotation is pretty simple. We are going to use Renewing Mist on the injured target for the Chi Harmony buff, and then we are going to start our Soothing Mist channel if you are using Soothing Mist. If not, you can ignore this. And then we will cast Enveloping Mist, and we will use Vivify until they are healthy. You can also use Shaylon's Gift if you don't need it for something else, or Life Cocoon. For 2 to 3 target healing, it looks very similar to our single target rotation. We will use Renewing Mist on 2 or 3 injured targets to apply that Chi Harmony buff, and then you will use Soothing Mist and basically follow the same rotation. If you have Soothing Mist and Peer into Peace Talented, you can freely move between targets when you are using your Enveloping Mist and your Vivify. If not, you will need to cast on each target individually by healing the lowest player or the most in danger player, and then moving on up the totem pole to the healthiest player. This is where the priority system comes in, and 2 to 3 target healing is just about as inconsistent of a damage pattern as you can get because it is random, so this is going to have the most variance. You can also use Chi-Ji in a situation like this, Shaylon's Gift, or you can Life Cocoon one target and then use the single target rotation to heal the other 2. And when it comes to group-wide damage, this is where we are going to send a cooldown for sure, either Shaylon's if it's a one-time thing, Chi-Ji if you are preventing one-shots, or if it's going to be a shorter maintained instance of damage. Revival works for dispels as well as a one-hit for a heal, and we also have access to Celestial Conduit, which is group-wide and channeled. You can also combine any a number of these. You just want to make sure you're not sending too much, and then in the case of Chi-Ji, you do not want to be casting during that cooldown. If you are dealing with group-wide damage with no cooldowns, this is most likely a planning issue, but you can kind of try to salvage it by either using Shaylon's Gift or by using any combination of Vivify Cleave, Renewing Mist, and Enveloping Mist just to try to keep people alive long enough to be able to stabilize. For our DPS rotation on single target, we are going to use our Jadefire Stomp to get both of our buffs, Rising Sun Kick on cooldown, and then alternate between 2 Tiger Palms and Blackout Kick, using your Rising Sun Kick on cooldown if it gets a reset. In this instance, we are not casting Jadefire Stomp on cooldown, only Rising Sun Kick, Tiger Palm, and Blackout Kick. For 2 to 4 target damage, it is the same rotation, except you are also using Jadefire Stomp on cooldown if you get a reset or if the cooldown comes up. And for 5 or more targets, our highest damaging ability is Spinning Crane Kick, and this is going to be most of our overall in dungeons anyway, so that is just something to keep in mind, that a lot of our time for damage is just spinning. And lastly, I would just like to recommend some UI elements. This is add-ons and weak auras. I would recommend having some type of unit frame so you can easier see people's health and their buffs. Personally, I use Voodoo. I know a lot of people use ElvUI. Cell has recently been quite popular, and I don't think I would recommend picking up Voodoo now, so if you are looking to get one of these, I would go grab Cell. Any type of boss timer, usually it's big and little wigs or DBM, and then there is a weak aura to make those a little easier to read, but you do want to know what mechanic is coming up so you can prepare. Details is just a way to keep track of your own performance live in the game, and you can look at logs later, so I'd definitely recommend having that details meter. Some kind of nameplate modifier. I use Plater because I like how easy it is to modify and how I can customize it, but I do recommend something that isn't the default nameplates because those just are not very informative. And then you will need to download the Weak Auras add-on to get different Weak Auras. For Mistweaver specifically, I would highly recommend getting the Jadefire Stomp Helper Weak Aura. This is going to let you know if you are actually in your stomp and eligible for a reset or not, and that is an important mechanic that Mistweaver has to track. We do have a lot of passive buffs to track as well, so I would recommend some form of keeping track of those. I do have mine available, as well as my unit frames and every other add-on that I use, but I would recommend some form of this, even if you don't like mine. There are plenty out there, or you can make your own. In the description, I will have my UI available, as well as the Chi-Ji, Tiger's Lust, and Diffuse sheet for your reference. I will also be active in Peaks and in my Discord, so that is linked below as well. And if you have any comments or questions, you can hit me up on Twitch, in the comments, or in either Discord. I hope that this video was helpful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.